So you think Super Mario Odyssey is overrated. Maybe you played the demo, maybe you watched some gameplay, or perhaps you naturally gloss over anything Mario related. Either way, you're fairly unimpressed, and I'm not here to judge. Ever so often, there's a game with such ubiquitous praise, it becomes obnoxious. And it can be hard to find the genuine good in something when every detail is drowned out in hyperbole and flowery language. So without naming any of the offending parties, I'm going to say yes, you're right. Super Mario Odyssey's reception is completely over the top. But is it a good game? Yes. And that's what this video is all about. Highlighting what makes the latest Mario entry special and why its reception is so positive without resorting to vague praise. Like magic. The old Nintendo magic. What does that mean? Don't just say magic. What does that mean? Part 1. It's been a minute. I know it's easy to take the Mario franchise for granted. After all, it's the most recognizable video game for the past 30 years. And between all the parties, kart racers, and tennis matches, there seems to be an overabundance of Mario titles. But Odyssey is a return to what many refer to as the core franchise. It's a bit of a nebulous term, and there's debate about what constitutes an official entry. For example, Super Mario World is undeniably part of the core franchise, while Super Mario Land is not. Why not? Well, it comes down to personal preference, but the general idea is core Mario games are level-based platformers that mostly center around single-player and are released on Nintendo's home consoles. Yes, I know the Switch is also portable, but it plays on a TV, so we're calling it a home console. So despite what Nintendo would like you to believe, New Super Mario Bros. U and Super Mario Bros. 3D World don't count. Which means Super Mario Galaxy 2, a 7.5-year-old game from 2 generations ago, is considered the last core entry. Even then, an open-world style game hasn't been seen since 2002's Super Mario Sunshine. Super Mario 64 introduced a wealth of ideas, many of which could have been improved over the years in a number of sequels. In 20 years, Nintendo released 1. So for many, Odyssey isn't simply a return to the core franchise, but also a follow-up to its most celebrated 3D variation. Part 2. Curiosity, not urgency. The most crucial element in game design is to create desire. Players have to be motivated to complete the task at hand to see a certain outcome. There's a lot of ways this can take place. In some modern games, story is the driving force. In others, competition is the primary focus. And lastly, there's personal achievement. While these may appear to be totally unique attractions, they all share in a sense of urgency, the compulsion to accomplish a set goal. It's an effective way to keep an audience engaged, regardless of how advanced or simple the gameplay is. But Super Mario Odyssey takes an equally viable, though less seen route, replacing urgency with curiosity. Each world does contain one story objective, usually involving a boss fight, but the majority of the campaign is spent wandering through large environments and stumbling into bite-sized objectives. Best of all, these scenarios rarely include any sort of explanation or instruction. You're left to goof off until reaching the natural conclusion, which prompts the release of the game's main collectible, a Power Moon. Like, what's this zipper doing here? Oh, I guess I was supposed to do that. Or what's this thing over here? Ah, it's another moon. And to really appreciate these long stretches of exploration, you'd have to try the controls for yourself. Everything from running, jumping, and trick maneuvers such as wall bouncing just feels right. There's a texture in the movement. Rolling is slightly more slippery than walking. It's liberating and weighty, challenging yet fair. And it makes the free roaming a simple pleasure. At no point did I feel desperate for the next Power Moon. Besides, each world is packed with way more than you'll need. But whatever direction I went, whatever caught my interest, wherever my curiosity led me, I was usually rewarded, which further fueled my curiosity. So yeah, watching a video at face value, it can be hard to appreciate these individual moments. But keep in mind, nearly everything in here is a genuine surprise and a mostly laid-back experience. Part 3. It's a toy room. One of the most exaggerated elements of Nintendo's history is their time in the toy industry, leaving some to continuously call Nintendo toy makers. Like, okay, you're right, they made toys. They've been around for 128 years. They also owned a taxi business and a string of hourly hotels. But in regards to Super Mario Odyssey, it's actually a relevant comparison. So far, every 3D Mario game has embraced a unique gimmick. For Mario 64, it was simply being a Mario game in 3D, while Super Mario Sunshine used FLUDD, a water pack for advanced movement, which is why that game sucks. And Odyssey introduces the sentient hat, Cappy, who allows Mario to quickly unleash attacks at a distance, including some extra handy offensive strikes through motion gestures. Yes, there are motion controls, but honestly, they're great. I personally didn't encounter any misfires. But Cappy's main focus is to take control of enemies and utilize their unique abilities. Putting aside the existential nightmare that is complete domination of a living creature, it's fun to see the little hat on their heads. And it's always exciting to visit the next world just to see what sort of mechanics are introduced. At first, the creatures stick close to the Mario canon, with Goombas and bullet bills. Even then, it's thrilling to soar through the air, dodging obstacles and crossing long gaps, or stacking Goombas to reach higher ground. By the way, there's a reoccurring challenge where a female Goomba gets excited to see a tall row of Goombas. What exactly is that doing for her? Are people into Stacking? Anyway, as the game progresses, lesser seen and altogether new types are introduced, and given that each have their own limited function, stages are designed to take advantage of those abilities. For instance, cracking open nutshells as the long-legged bugs, or playing a fishing minigame as a Lakitu, or crossing the ocean as an airborne squid or deep-diving Cheep Cheeps. I mean, yes, these are basically just playable characters with exclusive puzzles, but it's the premise that makes it feel like cheating the system, and experimenting with Cappy and discovering new powers can be, well, like a new toy. Part 4. It's really weird. Okay, granted, any game where a fat man can jump 3 times his own height is weird, but stick with me here. Nintendo's first-party output can be criticized for being repetitive, but Odyssey actually takes some surprising and welcome creative risks. The most obvious being the satanic hat that steals souls, but dig a little deeper and you'll see a number of thoughtful tweaks to the formula. First of all, lives are gone, just altogether gone. Can you even get a game over? I'm not really sure, as I never died once. Nah, I'm just kidding. But instead of relying on the Dade concept of lives, Mario drops a few coins after each death, which players can recover in their next attempt. If that sounds like Dark Souls, it's because it's totally Dark Souls. I assume this is an attempt to guide players through the enormous world without giving directions. And strangely enough, money plays a fairly big, though optional role. You've probably noticed the signature Mario getup is missing from most of this video, and that's because each world contains its own shop with multiple unlockable costumes, some of which are purchased with the easy-to-find golden coins, while others use a currency specific to that stage. And yes, even though it's far more fun to collect power moons on your own, hints can be purchased and marked on your map, so completionists rejoice. But putting all of that aside, Odyssey's worlds are unlike anything seen in a Mario game before. Rain-soaked rooftops, dense thriving jungles, and abstract food-based stages are just a few examples of Odyssey's diverse locations. There's really no theme, and that's sort of a theme in and of itself. It's a journey across disparate landscapes. Okay, that sounded a little pretentious. But seeing Mario enter a bouncing Yeti snow race or jump rope competition in a city park illustrates how big this game is through its hundreds of small details. Sure, there's still a lot of Mario in here, but that's sort of what you'd want, right? And even then, I don't think any video game ever has you playing as a fireball in a big pot of stew swimming up a stream of vomit to fight a giant bird. So yeah, it's weird. Part 5. I'll shut up now. So that's Super Mario Odyssey in a nutshell. A long-anticipated, though still surprising, experimental but simple, relaxing, charming game. Oh, and the soundtrack is super funky. If nothing else, I highly recommend you look up some of the songs. But, is it overrated? Of course it is! Heck, apparently it's the highest rated game of all time. And after decades of playing, I'm not even convinced there is a such thing as a greatest game ever. Except for Tetris, but that's another video. Between all the overblown social media posts and perfect scores lies a great game, and I hope you give it a shot sometime in the future. Even then, if you're not completely blown away, I'm sure you'll find something to enjoy. Which is more than I could say for Super Mario Sunshine. That game sucks. Okay, bye.